All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to our congregation, we want to get to know you and share a part of your journey. If this place is already your spiritual home, welcome back. We need one another, and it is good to be together again. We are so excited to be together in person again after almost 2 years of gathering only online during the coronavirus pandemic. Nevertheless, through the gifts of technology, we continue to celebrate community and connections with each other online also, as we lean into the values of justice, compassion, and reason. Together, we learn the love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service this morning. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love.
Arise, O souls, all arise.
Good morning. Welcome to this gathering of community dedicated to freedom, equality, and acceptance on this weekend dedicated to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer pride here in Kansas City. Welcome into the company of allies, advocates, activists, and change agents, seeking accountability to the well-being of gender-diverse communities. Welcome to this gathering of community dedicated to truth-telling, to not forgetting, and to democratic process, as our nation begins to come to terms with the past and present dangers of corrupt government and the potential costs of authentic patriotism. Welcome to the company of those who speak out and bear witness, who claim the duty to hold our leaders responsible, and above all, who vote. Welcome to this gathering of community dedicated to justice, equity, and mutuality, looking ahead to next Saturday's Poor People's and Low-Wage Workers Assembly and Moral March in Washington, D.C., seeking fair pay, affordable health care, and food and housing security for America's 140 million citizens living at or below the poverty line. Welcome into the company of those who strive to live our own lives simply, sustainably, compassionately, and wisely, so that all people might thrive in peace and abundance. Here, amidst this covenant community of memory and promise, we would be recalled to our duties in the service of truth, equality, and justice. And we would lift our spirits to new gladness in the vision of an earth made whole, with all its people one. We would gather to support one another in lives of compassion, curiosity, integrity, and celebration, so that together we might explore the endless adventure of life and create the meaning of our humanity. From many places near and far, we kindle the chalice flame that is the symbol of our faith heritage. May it shine as a beacon to our best selves and to all who seek hope in the promise of greater truth and larger love yet to be known. I invite you to rise as you are willing and able and join me in song. Let's remain standing and speak together the words of our covenant promise to one another in community. Together we affirm, goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now we can be seated, and those youngsters who are going off to class may depart with song.
Faith to follow where the human spirit Good morning. I'm Allison Hartnett.
And I'm Carissa Stevens, and us, along with Margaret Drinkwine, Lanisa Robinson, and Bernie Brennan, compose the Ministerial Search Committee. We were asked by the board to conduct a search for a full-time contract minister. The successful candidate would collaborate duties with Kendall while she transitions to part-time. Our committee created a survey for members and friends to share what is important to them as we enter this transition. We are thankful to all people who filled out our survey and to the parents and guardians who shared our children's survey so that everyone had a voice in the process. We have question summaries to share today, and the first area of interest is that the congregation is the qualities that the congregation would like the contract minister to have. So we can see up on the board here, the size of the words are proportional to the amount of people who said that word or phrase in their answer. We can't help but notice that most people would like the new minister to focus on youth and young adults. Similarly, we were fascinated by what you told us in areas that you would like to see us grow with this change. So that is this one. I think there are a lot of great existing strengths that we can build and expand upon here.
Thank you. We also engaged the UUA with their formal ministerial search process and created a profile for a candidate to find us. This is a well-established protocol, and we as a committee pledge to keep the identities of those candidates private until we're at a point to bring their names to the board. The great resignation, or reshuffle, as you might want to call it, that has dominated the landscape in the last few months also applies to clergy of all faiths. To counteract that, the committee has tried to position our Midwestern congregation so that the right person can find us. We have a request for each of you. Help us spread the word. We have taken out ads in the GA program and the UU world to increase our visibility. At General Assembly, we are sending promotional materials along and have asked several members of our congregations to be ambassadors and available for potential candidates to ask questions. We're also deliberately expanding our social media presence. If you're active on social media, please consider sharing your All Souls experience online. There will be an activity at the Ice Cream Social on July 3rd where you can take a picture of yourself or with some friends or family and post it. So please, if you are willing, please participate. In addition, if there are people in your network who you think might be great for this position, please direct them to our formal listing at All Souls or under Kansas City in the formal portal. We're excited about the work that we've done so far, and we hope to bring you candidates soon.
Maybe it's just me, but I find this part of the service usually pretty awkward, the offertory. You get besides, does the basket go here, or is this other person going to grab the basket? We've got, do I have any cash? And then under the pressure of the moment, you pull out your purse or your wallet, and you only have a 20. So do I give the 20 or do I give nothing? Or do I give a 1 or a 5 if I have it? So what do I do if I'm pledging already? I'm already giving $100 a month. Do I need to give anything here on Sunday morning? So it gets kind of awkward, and so we duck our heads and we avoid eye contact with the ushers. So I've tried to reframe it for myself. I use it now as a weekly reminder of giving what I can and asking myself, am I giving what I can? And not just in terms of money, but in terms of time as well. And I've moved that into my meditative practice, which is not a daily thing necessarily. But I try to incorporate that to continually ask myself, am I giving what I can? And to be content and to let myself be okay with what I give, as opposed to feeling the pressure of the moment, feeling the stare of the usher, or a worry about what my neighbors might think. So I encourage you today to look the ushers in the eye and to give what you can.
I got to Kansas City on a Friday. By Saturday, I learned a thing or two. For up till then, I didn't have an idea of what the modern world was coming to. I counted 20 gas buggies going by themselves almost every time I took a walk. Then I put my ear to the bell telephone and a strange woman started up to talk. Everything's up to date in Kansas City. They've gone about as far as they can go. They went and built a skyscraper 7 stories high, about as high as a building ought to go. Everything's like a dream in Kansas City. It's better than a magic lantern show. You can turn the radiator on whenever you want some heat. With every kind of comfort, every house is all complete. You can walk to privies in the rain and never wet your feet. They've gone about as far as they can go. They've gone about as far as they can go. Everything's up to date in Kansas City. They've gone about as far as they can go. They got a place in town there they call All Souls UU. They're looking for a preacher high and low. Everything's like a dream in Kansas City. They started a committee to find someone to help them learn and grow. The members took a notion to up and do a search to find someone to lead them and not leave them in the lurch. They got a dandy vision for the future of the church. They've gone about as far as they can go. They've gone about as far as they can go.
We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society. Thank you.
To Be of Use by Marge Piercy. The people I love the best jump into work head first without dallying in the shallows and swim off with sure strokes, almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black sleek head of seals, bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves, an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest, who work in a row and pass bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come or the fire is to be put out. The work of the world is common as mud, botched. It smears the hands and crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well has a shape that satisfies. It's clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums because you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry and for a person, for work that is real.
Our second reading is a poem called Church Going by the British poet Philip Larkin, and it is such a favorite that I wanted to read it myself. Once I am sure there's nothing going on, I step inside, letting the door thud shut. Another church, matting, seats, and stone, and little books, sprawlings of flowers cut for Sunday, brownish now. Some brass and stuff up at the holy end. The small, neat organ. And a tense, musty, unignorable silence brewed God knows how long. Hatless, I take off my cycle clips in awkward reverence. Move forward, run my hand around the font. From where I stand, the roof looks almost new, cleaned or restored. Someone would know, I don't. Mounting the lectern, I peruse a few hectoring large-scale verses and pronounce, "Here endeth," much more loudly than I'd meant. The echoes snigger briefly. Back at the door, I sign the book, donate an Irish sixpence, reflect the place was not worth stopping for. Yet stop I did. In fact, I often do, and always end much at a loss like this, wondering what to look for. Wondering, too, when churches fall completely out of use, what we shall turn them into. If we shall keep a few cathedrals chronically on show, their parchment plate and pyx in locked cases, and let the rest rent-free to rain and sheep. Shall we avoid them as unlucky places? Or after dark, will dubious women come to make their children touch a particular stone, pick simples for a cancer, or on some advised night see walking a dead one? Power of some sort will go on, in games, in riddles, seemingly at random. But superstition, like belief, must die. And what remains when disbelief has gone? Grass, weedy pavement, brambles, buttress, sky, a shape less recognizable each week, a purpose more obscure. I wonder who will be the last, the very last, to seek this place for what it was. One of the crew that tap and jot and know what Rudolphs were, some ruin bibber randy for antique, or Christmas addict counting on a whiff of gown and bands and organ pipes and myrrh. Or will he be my representative, bored, uninformed, knowing the ghostly silt dispersed, yet tending to this cross of ground through suburb scrub, because it held unspilt so long and equably what since is found only in separation, marriage and birth and death, and thoughts of these, for which was built this special shell. For though I've no idea what this accoutered, frowsty barn is worth, it pleases me to stand in silence here. A serious house on serious earth it is, in whose blent air all our compulsions meet, are recognized and robed as destinies. And that much never can be obsolete, since someone will forever be surprising a hunger in himself to be more serious, and gravitating with it to this ground, which he once heard was proper to grow wise in, if only that so many dead lie round.
To be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. There is hurting in my family. There is sorrow in my town. There is panic in the nation. There is wailing the whole world around. But I am open, I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange, to dishonor those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly. May the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though it burns our eyes. For I am open, I am willing, for to be helpless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. For I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change.
Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn, are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. Those amphoras may not be the only things headed for the museum. As the British poet Philip Larkin wonders, when churches fall completely out of use, what we shall turn them into. If we shall keep a few cathedrals chronically on show, their parchment, plate, and pyx in locked cases, and let the rest rent free to rain and sheep, shall we avoid them as unlucky places? Or after dark, will dubious women come to make their children touch a particular stone, pick simples for a cancer, or on some advised night see walking a dead one? I should confess that there is a certain self-consciousness here in the waning years of my own career in ministry to ponder the future of the institutional church. I am, and we are, about to embark on an experiment in, among other things, sustainability, conscious elderhood, intentional succession planning, aka the peaceful transfer of power, cultural competence, and congregational growth. If the institutional church, in fact, has no future beyond that of an anachronistic museum artifact, what difference will the outcome of our particular investigation make? It only makes any sense if we expect this institution to endure somehow meaningfully into the future and to continue to require specialized leadership. The arguments against that expectation are plentiful, and they arose in their latest forms well prior to the advent of the COVID pandemic, although that historical landmark has amplified some of them. We who have been practicing the vocation of religious leadership during the course of this cultural watershed have cause to be aware that the landscape of faith community has shifted around us in unprecedented ways throughout this time. And we must be about the business of reorienting ourselves now. What has changed irretrievably for our people and for our communities? Do they need something different from us than they used to? And if so, what is it? Are there basics we can go back to that have not altered? Have we all changed as people? Or has our role as clergy in community and society shifted? Is our guidance still important? Or have we been rendered irrelevant in this secular technological age? Does the sacred space that we curate, and I use that word advisedly, matter anymore? Let me be clear that I do not see any occasion to suppose that the essential nature of the human condition has been altered. The existential problems that have always confronted our forebears confront us still. Death, suffering, desire, meaning, promises, choices, power, aspiration, love. We are still that kind of creatures, still pestered and stumped by the same cosmic trick questions, still bound together in the open limbic loop of a social species, still negotiating our unique identities out of and amidst that interdependent web and that longing for beloved community. The coronavirus didn't change any of that. Nor has globalization or the climate crisis or the explosions of technology or anything else that preceded it. However, I don't know about you, but I am not storing my olive oil in carved stone vases these days, or my dried corn in woven baskets. Things wind up in museums because in some way the culture has moved on. And there is also the human impulse toward anamnesis, the act of not forgetting that informs ritual and myth and indeed poetry, all of which concern us in this enterprise. The form of things changes, even when the things themselves do not. So let us consider what Larkin calls later in his poem about church going, this accoutered frowsty barn, which he claims once held marriage and birth and death and thoughts of these. Back in the day when I began as a minister, weddings, for instance, were a frequent element of the work. Occasionally for our own church members, of course, but far more frequently for couples who either had no church affiliation of their own or who were in circumstances like second marriages, living together or already having a child together, or racially or religiously mixed couples, such that their most familiar church or denomination refused to celebrate their marriage. I enjoyed those weddings, even with their often elaborate preparations, because I took satisfaction in helping people to experience what a liberal, accepting religious community could offer, and the value that competent ministry could add to their experience of getting married. Today, I can count on the fingers of one hand the number of weddings I'm called upon to perform in a year for people not already connected to our congregation. And most recently, those have been for couples experiencing homelessness who find that their bureaucratic chances for subsidized housing are better if they can show that they are married. Couples who have no pre-existing personal or family church affiliations are being married by their professors, their relatives, their bosses, their friends, their DJ, or whatever judge is available at the courthouse. And of course, lately, as with everything else, online. The carved out sacred space of the church just isn't relevant in the way that it once was. I'm far more likely to be asked something like, my granddaughter wants me to do a reading at her wedding. Can you suggest some appropriate options? The same phenomenon is occurring, although somewhat more slowly, with regard to funerals and memorial services. I suspect that when the generation that has substituted wedding planners and event spaces for sanctuaries and clergy in their marrying comes to plan their own departures from this life or to make arrangements for their loved ones, the choice will divide about evenly between funeral homes and favorite bars, with friends and relatives pressed into service as MCs. We long ago stopped laying our loved ones to rest in the church-side graveyard, where burying was a physical act that served to metabolize grief for all present, and where their proximity maintained a sense of continued connection between the dead and their living community. Now, the neatness of cremation eliminates the unwieldiness of coffins and the time pressure of decomposition. The expectation of sacred space dedicated to the contemplation of mortality, one's own or others, is likewise evaporating. The death professionals are taking over from the multi-purpose minister, and one more strand in the web that once connected the cradle to the coffin is severed. I wonder, when churches fall completely out of use, what we shall turn them into. Now, it is not my intention to be the raven's croak of doom at this hour of reflection, nor was it Larkin's message either. Rather, he observes of the accoutered frowsty barn he is visiting that it pleases me to stand in silence here. And he continues, a serious house on serious earth it is, in whose blent air all our compulsions meet, are recognized and robed as destinies. And that much never can be obsolete, since someone will forever be surprising a hunger in himself to be more serious and gravitating with it to this ground, which he once heard was proper to grow wise in, if only that so many dead lie round. And this, it seems to me, is the work of religious community, whatever form it may take in the culture of the time. To curate the practice of reverence that can satisfy our eternal, surprising hunger to be more serious, and to provide the ground that is proper to grow wise in. I want to suggest to you and to all of us that if we seek to build or sustain such a serious house on serious earth, we must undertake Marge Piercy's call to be part of the work of the world, reaching out with a compassionate and practical response to the needs of those around us. Without that commitment to lived reverence, we shall never reach life's deepest and highest wisdom, either individually or collectively. Such service to others may or may not change the world. What is certain is that it transforms those who do it. The church must be a place that summons us to generosity and action on behalf of others, not stridently, but with a gentle, persistent witness that this is the tangible mission that weaves the enduring bonds of the community we seek. Also, when we are trying to grow wise, it helps to be surrounded by things of lasting value, to have a history and a heritage. It helps to have before us examples of excellence, beautiful objects, fine craftsmanship, an attention to detail and quality that makes something worth preserving over a long time, even when its original purpose was mundane, like those Greek amphoras and Hopi baskets. We must build for lasting beauty in our relationships, in our architecture, in our language, in the artifacts of our common life. And we must know and honor the stories of what binds us together in that common life through a shared history. We need the legacy of great deeds that inspire us, of heroes who show by their example what human excellence is and what we ourselves might yet become. The stories of those, for instance, who speak truth in the halls of power, even when doing so dismantles their own positions of privilege. These aspirations are the beginning of our growing wise, both individually and as communities. And the place where they are held enduringly important is a place proper to grow wise in. Another element for the building of our serious house is a commitment to the value of reverence. It is through the reverent use of authority that the deepest teaching and the most authentic leadership is accomplished. It is reverence that robes our recognized compulsions as sacred destinies. Reverence that holds marriage and birth and death and thoughts of these in an enduring and equable balance. The hunger to be more serious begins in the recognition that there are forces at work in this world and in this life larger than our own individual wills. And to grow wise is to know that happiness and integrity are found in cooperation with those forces. A place proper to grow wise in holds that awareness quietly and steadily before our eyes, and those who exercise authority within it never forget that to lead is to serve. Along with their elegant wine jars, the ancient Greeks produced a philosophical concept named sophrosone. The word is often mistranslated as temperance, but what it really means is self-knowledge in the service of self-control. This is the fruit of the inner life of spiritual maturity, that we come to understand our own motivations, temptations, longings, and fears, not for the sake of satisfying or alleviating them, so much as that we may make our choices freely, not held hostage by our own unexamined impulses. Thus it is that our compulsions meet, are recognized, and robed as destinies. We shall grow wise together as we learn to see clearly into our own hearts through the process of reverent reflection that is the unchanging purpose of spiritual practice in covenant community. And that much never can be obsolete. It is my dearest hope that my invitation to this community to join me in our unorthodox experiment in leadership transition arises from my own practice of sophrosone. What I can discern of my own ongoing calling, what Frederick Buechner once called the place where the heart's deep gladness meets the world's deep need, is that I am not yet ready to release the vocation of ministry altogether, nor does it feel fair of me to abandon this community entirely at this moment of profound cultural bewilderment. Yet I am deeply tired, in part from the unprecedented demands of the past 2 years, in part from the greater limits on my energy that I recognize as I age, and in part from the shifting personal hungers for greater connection with distant family and friends, as well as more substantial quiet time for individual pursuits like writing, gardening, reading, downsizing household in preparation for our next life chapter, and spending time with Mark. I am also urgently aware of the window of generational transition that right now has the potential to occur in this community, and that must happen soon if the institution is not to fall completely out of use and become a museum artifact. Most dearly beloved, please hear me when I say that no part of this, none of it, is anything that you or we have done wrong. This congregation has ever been generous and supportive of my leadership and of our ministry together. If it were not so, I would deploy the resources that would easily enable me to retire a few years earlier than we had planned, without regret. But as long as you are on board, I would like to try this new thing and see whether we can make the process of generational leadership transfer a bit less high stakes than the way it is most often done. Let me share a glimpse of my vision of what that might look like. At the end of our fiscal year, when the calendar clicks over from June to July, I will be paid and expected to work half-time in the role of senior minister. Half of my current compensation and benefits will go to fund a contract minister position, combined with half of our former religious education director's compensation and benefits, so that the contract ministry will be a responsibly paid full-time position. A few moments ago, you heard an update from the search committee that is now seeking candidates for that position. Although a contract minister is technically hired by the Board of Trustees, when a suitable candidate has been recommended by the search committee, we will make a significant effort to introduce that person to the congregation at large and receive your input. At the end of the 3-year contract period, when I fully retire, the congregation will have the option to call that person as a settled minister, to release them and enter a new full search, or to invite them to continue in a contract capacity while you enter search for a new senior minister. The options at that point will be quite open, both for you and for that person. A great deal of how we will structure the day-to-day distribution of ministerial duties will depend on the particular skills, gifts, and preferences of a person who has yet to be identified, which is why I can't tell you much specific about that at this point. My supposition is that I will work in the office, take calls, and attend meetings on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, whether or not I am the main preacher that week. On those weeks when I do preach on Sunday, I will be working Saturdays as well, crafting the service and the sermon as I do now. I will be available to trade off with my partner for emergencies and to cover vacation time and other absences. In addition to sharing half of the senior minister duties, the contract minister will have a particular focus on young adults, young families, and youth. They will work with the high school program, reach out to our local colleges, and create ways for All Souls to address the unique interests of both single and partnered young adults, as well as those beginning families. While we are not seeking to impose specific age restrictions, we are looking for someone who is a digital native, at ease with social media and its ongoing evolutions, and conversant with the cultural realities that shape the experiences of today's young adults. This is something of a niche position, so we may need to be patient, flexible, and creative in our outreach in order ultimately to find the right match. I should also note that because we are in this period of transition, I will not be taking my usual time off during the summer this year. Instead, I will, on a half-time basis, oversee the summer services and hope that perhaps in August or September, I may be able to orient our new contract minister to life and work at All Souls. When they are securely established, we will arrange for me to take my postponed weeks of break, sometime in the fall, I hope. I would like to thank all the board members, lay leaders, and committee volunteers who have so graciously helped and encouraged me to envision this approach to ministry that could be both sustainable for me and energizing for our congregation. If it works, it will launch All Souls into a new chapter of vitality and ongoing relevance here in Kansas City. This is sacred work that we are engaged in. A time not only of excitement for the future, but also a moment proper to grow wise in. May it become for all of us a renewal and a deepening of our commitment to the work of reverence and spiritual growth, and to the safeguarding of all that is of enduring beauty and worth here in our beloved community. May we be about the task of building that serious house on serious earth where puzzled folk, ministers and people both, together, may bring our own surprising hungers that never can be obsolete, to be taken seriously in our quest for wisdom, for lives that matter, and to be of use for the work, which is the most real and sacred thing we know. Will you rise and sing? We now release this chalice flame and send forth into the community the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fires of commitment, while these we carry also in our hearts until we are together again. There is finally only one thing required of us. That is to take life whole, the light and dark together, to live the life that is given us with courage and humor and truth. We have such a little moment out of the vastness of time for all our wondering and loving. Therefore, let there be no half-heartedness. Rather, let the soul be ardent in its pain, in its yearning, in its praise. In every generation, life calls us on, and the work of the world falls into our hands. May we answer that call together, willingly, in humble, faithful joy. Go in peace.